Sorry, we're a few minutes late because we're still novices at doing this live stream.
And when the video screen suddenly said live at the top of the screen, we thought it was live, not that it wasn't live until we pushed the button down off the screen on the lower left, which we've now done. So hi, everyone.
Yes. So welcome. If anyone is able to watch along with us, you're welcome to ask questions in the chat or in the comments, and we'll answer them after our first few announcements. So, well, first of all, we've actually just come back from a Plant Powered Melbourne picnic in the park in Melbourne, and it was an absolute delight with, I don't know, how many people were there?
At least a dozen.
At least a dozen, maybe 15. And we were brave souls because although the day was meant to be partly cloudy, about half an hour before the picnic started, some rain showers blew through and stayed blowing through for about the next 2 hours, and the sun came out just after we packed up to go home. That was a shame, but it was delightful, those who joined us. And if you're from another city around Australia, there are other meetup groups focused on whole food plant-based nutrition, and particularly we know that Brisbane, Plant Powered Brisbane's got a meetup coming up, I think next Sunday, and Plant Powered Adelaide have been doing some regular ones. So if you are from those two cities, I'd jump onto the Facebook page if you're not already on it. And there are some Plant Powered meetup groups that are linked from our website in other parts of Australia, although they've been less active lately. So we did say we were going to talk about what's new in 2024. We mentioned we were making just a few changes when we did our last live stream earlier in the month. And the main change is something Malcolm has to announce. So
This is a huge change for me. I've actually I'm retiring from clinical general practice work as of the end of this week, taking a break for a few weeks. And when I say retiring, I'm not good at resting and retiring. So what I'm really doing is changing my focus to the areas that really interest me, and I have expertise in nutrition and lifestyle medicine. So I'll have greater availability for my telehealth services that I offer to people across Australia. For the time being, I won't actually have a in-person place to see new patients, but I think in the future I'll probably have a room where I do the occasional half day for people who wish to see me in person for their first visit in lifestyle medicine, so that subsequent telehealth gets a Medicare rebate. So that's my big plan. So a much greater focus on the telehealth services and on the lifestyle medicine programs. We're currently just finishing a webinar series. We have an immersion event coming up in March. There'll be a lot more happening this year with me no longer spending the 2 or 3 days a week in clinical general practice. Other recent news, episode before last was on the National Health Association podcast. The National Health Association is a US organization claiming to be the longest organization in time that's recommends SOS-free whole foods plant-based diet. They've also been involved with fasting as well. So my interview with Frank Sabatino was the SOS-free advantage of whole foods of plant-based nutrition. And Frank Sabatino and I discussed this for part of the interview, and also spoke a little bit about our immersion event, our live-in program, and some of the amazing results we see when people, do a 100% healthy lifestyle in a supportive environment. So you can find that on the National Health Association podcast.
The actual podcast is called Health Science Podcast, I think. Anyway, we'll put a link after this event. We'll put it in the comments underneath. Yeah. And so each time we do a live stream, we want to share something, our thoughts on something that we've read recently. And so this month, the focus has been Dr. Michael Greger's new book, How Not to Age, and Malcolm, we share an Audible account, so Malcolm listened to it first and I'm only part way through it. So I'm going to get Malcolm to do most of the talking on this, but what's really struck me, I've already known people in the past few weeks tell me that they've gone and bought particular foods, or they're searching for things like black cumin, because Dr. Michael Greger's mentioned them in his book. And this just brings me back to, the basic principle that T. Colin Campbell talks about is the problem of scientific reductionism. Now, don't get me wrong, we love what Dr. Greger does, but it's hilarious when I think of people who, if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, that's got plenty of all the different nutrients, whether we're talking spermidine, what was the other thing that he talks about getting enough of? Anyway, the research that shows the benefit, this is, anything that you see in the nutrition world, when one nutrient or one food is supposed to be good for a particular aspect of health, just know that the subjects that were studied were always on a standard Western diet, and the results are not very relevant to those of us eating whole food plant-based.
When your subjects only eat, average maybe 2 serves of fruit and veg a day, adding just about any plant to their diet can make an improvement.
And often in the research that's quoted in this book, the people were not eating much of anything, any of the particular nutrient or food, but there was, small differences in those who ate none and those who ate, some versus those who ate more. So anyway, that's just my little hobby horse about the relevance of much of nutrition research. It gives us trends, it gives us ideas, it gives us confidence in eating, in how to eat a generally healthy diet. But you don't need to keep looking for hacks to make your diet even better. Over to you, Malcolm.
Unless your hacks are something like, I'm going to eat green leafy vegetables every day. I guess reading or listening to that book, how do you sum up like a 500 plus page, however many hours the book was, in a few minutes? There are two things that have a positive effect on that tweak the mechanisms of aging, about 10 or 11 sort of mechanisms, processes in the body that are thought to be tied up with aging. And there are two things that stood out as affecting nearly everyone. One of them's exercise. So I think this book, if you're reading the book or read the book, listen to it, and you miss that point, exercise improves just about every mediator that impacts on aging, health in general too. But you can't outrun a bad diet, that's very well known. And the other thing that really stood out as influencing nearly every factor was the negative effect of animal protein. Particularly due to, apart from the whole package, people don't put protein on their plate when they say, I'll put protein. What protein will I have on your plate? If they're putting chicken on their plate, it's like inflammatory arachidonic acid, carcinogens, saturated fat, cholesterol, ... But just looking at the animal protein itself, the animal protein has a much higher content of certain amino acids. It tends to have more protein anyway, but also a higher proportion of amino acids like methionine, which is sort of the only sort of amino acid that in itself can cause oxidative stress, and upregulates several factors sort of that involved in aging and cancer. And unfortunately, when you read about nutritionals in the paper the other day, and about restrict calories to live longer, it's like most, if not all, of those benefits can be, can be obtained by actually restricting protein, particularly the animal protein. I said the methionine amino acids quite high. Also, an animal protein branched chain amino acids is another one, particularly high dairy food, and probably explains part of dairy food's link with the hormone IGF-1, which is sort of a cancer-promoting hormone, particularly prostate cancer. And if you're not an older male, just things like acne. So I guess this brings us on to, it's really easy to meet your protein needs. Although we have a little bit of a point that we think not many people share with the protein content of food, and often protein content's given per weight of food. And so anything that's really concentrated on high in calories, like pumpkin seeds, sort of tops the chart. But when you actually adjust it and you do amount of protein per calorie, like I'm going to eat, several times as many legumes as pumpkin seeds to get the same number of calories. So it turns out that sometimes when you see things in nutrition charts as their best source of protein, or the best source of calcium or iron, it's often just because it's a dry, fat-rich, calorie-dense food. But anyway, back to the protein aspect of it. You're not going to get low in protein. I'm a age group athlete, and do I need more protein? I mean, just eating ordinary food, oats and potatoes and things, even without legumes, I'd cover it. And I guess if I'm actually doing the physical activity, I'm going to eat more as well, so I get more protein. But away from that protein requirements stuff, protein supplements. Gregor pointed out that branched chain amino acids don't actually have an anabolic effect in humans. Although if you're training your rats for the Olympic weightlifting, it does seem to in rats, but not humans. I've always had this caution that, people will say, well, T. Colin Campbell's studies found that plant protein didn't promote cancer growth in those rodents. Many of those rodents, I imagine, were in their cages, nibbling, low or high protein or plant or animal protein, pellets all day long. They probably weren't chugging down a protein drink in one hit. In How Not to Age, Michael Greger says that plant protein supplements like 40 grams, or even perhaps starting at about 25 grams, actually cause a spike in IGF-1, cancer hormone, cancer aging growth hormone. Not actually, any studies finding a direct link to human cancer and plant protein supplements. But I would just caution people that, if they're chugging down those protein supplements, and the ones that claim there's a mixture of plants that's got a really high amino acid availability, it probably means it's got quite a high content of things like methionine and branched chain amino acids, and may give you some of the disadvantages of an animal protein like whey protein, and are quite unnecessary.
Anything else you want to say about the book?
No. Look, it's worthwhile read in classic Greger style. There's a great deal of detail, and as a nutrition science nerd, I really like that. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of good information in there, and just like in How Not to Diet. It wasn't all immediately related to losing weight, but it was a lot of material sort of related to health in general. I'd say the same with How Not to Age, that there's a lot of good information on how to be healthy in general, that relates to general health and not just aging. But I will say, Jenny, that when I bought that wheat germ, because it's really high in spermidine, which is really
You could admit to
important
it.
phytonutrient, There's a bit of an emotional attachment there because when I was a child, I remember the wheat hearts and sprinkling them on my whatever breakfast cereal and how much I liked them.
I'm not convinced to add wheat germ to my morning cereal. Actually, I've got something else to say about the book, but if anyone's following along and you have questions for us, I'm going to throw to questions soon. You can just write a comment. The one thing that I hadn't really thought about is the market for this book. I was just thinking, oh, it's of interest to us because we are getting older, and I know lots of people who have talked
Who are
about
getting
reading it
older.
who are getting
We're the
older.
lucky ones. And part of my sort of retirement from ordinary general practice and the timing of it is that I actually turned 65 in March. So looking forward to a half marathon event later in the year because I'll be in a new age group.
Anyway,
Everyone might
what
be
I
slower.
was going to mention for any of you watching who are thinking about getting a copy is a certain person connected to me and my family, much, much younger, started looking through it and thinking, wow, there's a section on skin in here. Oh, so she was really interested, and I ended up, I lost the copy I had, have to order a new one. But I was very happy to send it home with that relative of mine. So just think about, actually, some younger people might be interested in a book, How Not to Age. I hadn't really thought about someone still in their 20s being interested. So that was fun.
There have been some other things in the media too. Apparently King Charles had a prostate procedure for benign prostate enlargement. And there was, they had a few experts in the newspaper write things about it and say it gives stuff that's really, we really believe in telling people the truth about nutrition. Not so much coaching them to make compromises, they can do that, but telling them the truth, letting them decide, not be paternalistic about it. And I was very disappointed when experts had been, asked to contribute in the newspaper about not just prostate enlargement, but prostate cancer. And they more or less said it was genetic and age related, and that the only thing that might protect you is tomato. Please, people, why didn't they mention dairy? Dairy, many studies show association between dairy and taking prostate cancer. This is not inherited. This is a disease that was rare in Japan, for example, in the 1950s, but now they're seeing it. So there's a lot, just like with breast cancer, similar risk factors. There's a lot you can do to reduce your risk of cancer. In the case of prostate cancer, for the low to medium grade prostate cancer, there's even randomized controlled trials showing that diet can control the growth of that cancer. Oh, more in the media. There's been a big surge in interest
I was
in.
about to talk about that.
Yes,
Yes, in my role as admin for the group Whole Food Plant-Based Aussies, we're blown away by the number of people requesting to join, and in their reasons for joining that they've written that they've just watched the Netflix documentary, You Are What You Eat. And it's just, literally we've grown by hundreds in the last week or so, many hundreds. And that's very exciting that people are finding their way to whole food, plant-based nutrition as well. And but whenever there's a spike, I remember back in the Game Changers era in 2019 when that was released and had widespread viewing, we had a lot of people interested. But along with that comes the fight back from industry. So you have a look out for it, and we sort of do it with a smile. We think, oh, what's going to be in tomorrow's newspaper? That article by the dietitian.
We've already seen a little bit
We've
of stuff
seen a
about
bit of
the
it.
importance of eating protein all through the day and having a protein with each meal,
Yeah.
which doesn't include oats, which is my protein at breakfast. It was, talking about animal products, and that I think, those articles come out all the time, and the person that actually wrote that, has worked for certain industry groups that produce one of those so-called proteins. You will see a bit of a fight back. But no, it's interesting. I must admit, I've only watched the first episode. It was actually a properly conducted, published study, but it's been made into a Netflix sort of documentary series. And the model was that they took pairs of monozygous twins, of identical twins, um, and they took the documentary only features a few of them, but did quite a large number of
It was
these.
22 pairs, and they were then randomized. So out of the 44, they were randomized to either a vegan diet or a healthy. They actually did make it a healthy omnivorous diet. They all had to eat more fruit and veg, regardless of which arm of the trial they were in.
And we wouldn't have been totally surprised, but most of my colleagues, many of the public would, that those that were randomized to the vegan diet got rapid and large improvements in things like their LDL cholesterol, their blood sugar control, their weight, etc. So that leads us to say we always recommend whole plant foods, and that would recommend people stay away from some of those highly processed meat like plant products and the like. But even someone on a not all that whole vegan diet will still get some big health improvements and changes in their measurements. But someone like Michael Greger and us would say, but why not be very healthy and be very much whole food or whole food predominant?
Okay, I think we better finish up. I don't want to make these videos too long. I'm seeing there's no questions in the comments yet. And I know from the last live stream we did that plenty of people watched it later. So I guess that's the way it goes. So we might just, unless someone is ready to tap a question in, we'll sign off now.
We'll sign off,
So,
and we'll be
yes,
back.
thanks, Jill. No question. Okay. I know that there was about 14 people watching at some point, so that's nice.
We'll be
We'll
back
do it, yes, in a few weeks. We're
probably.
just having a little break.
Yeah,
And we'll be
taking a
back.
break, probably about 4 weeks.
Okay, so thanks for watching. Okay, bye.